I want to start by thanking the PyCon Africa organizers for putting on this event. There's a lot of fantastic work being done in the Python African community, and I'm really honored to be a part of this event, sharing our experiences from Chicago with everybody in the African community as well as the Python community around the world. And also thanks to everybody out there to come and watch me give this talk. I know it's like right before the keynote, so let's just have some fun. My name is Ali Sivji. You can find me on Twitter. I am at Caius Sivjus. I am from Chicago, which is in the Midwest of the U.S. They call Chicago the Third Coast. We're on the coast of Lake Michigan. I've been here since 2008, and before I was from Canada, but I love Chicago. It's my home. In Chicago, I help organize the Chicago Python users group. We call ourselves Chippy. And I'm going to tell you a story about a community engagement initiative we've been working on for the past year called Busy Beaver. But I'm starting to get a little bit ahead of myself. The Chicago Python users group was founded back in 2003. We're one of the OG Python communities. We've grown from a small group of Python enthusiasts to becoming one of the largest Python communities in the world. We have 6,000 members on Meetup. And every month, we usually have 3 to 5 events. In addition to our Dunder main meeting, which happens on the second Tuesday of every single month, we have special interest groups that focus in on more niche applications of Python. A majority of our community uses Python for data science. I think that's pretty much true for communities across the world. So we have a special interest group devoted to data science, data engineering, data analysis, machine learning. There's also a group for web dev / DevOps. This one's my favorite. Since the discipline of software engineering, it's a little bit more mature. We have an eclectic mix of talks. We've had talks about gRPC with protobufs, about DevOps best practices. The speaker used Simpsons memes, so that was a lot of fun. And our last event had a talk about migrating a bot from Node.js to Go. It's not really a Python topic, but these kinds of things, they come up in software engineering, and we can use them to maybe migrate from Python 2 to Python 3. Chicago is also one of the biggest finance hubs in the world, and we have Pythonistas in trading shops all over the city, and we also have a SIG devoted to it. And for folks that can't make our evening events, we have the Python lunch break, and this event happens once a month, and it's during lunch, and it's usually hosted in the downtown Chicago offices of one of our sponsors. It's by far our smallest event. There's usually only 20 people that can attend, but I find it one of our closely knit, one of the best discussions we have. We also have a monthly special interest group devoted to algorithms and data structures. In this event, we have 2 to 3 problems that we take from a site like LeetCode or HackerRank, and then folks break up into small groups and work on these problems together. And at the end, we select groups to present a solution to each of their problems. We also hold a monthly project night. And so this project night has 2 tracks. We have a group of project night track where teams of 4 people mob program on a challenge that one of our organizers has created. And our second track, it's a little bit less formal. It's the bring your own project track. And here people just bring their side projects and work around a room together. And we have folks wandering, providing help as they can. The picture on the right, that's of Naomi Cedar. Naomi was the last chairperson of the PSF. Naomi's from Chicago, and we're proud to have her as a member of our community. And all of this is just really to say that we're fortunate to have a very active community of Pythonistas in Chicago. And like most organizations, Chicago Python, we have a Slack workspace. And this platform, it's become more ingrained in our community over the past few months to years. Our workspace currently has 1,900 plus members. I think the last count was 1952. We have over 170,000 total messages sent. That's just amazing. A lot of friendships happen on Slack. And currently we have around 150 weekly active users. Before COVID-19 happened, it was averaging around 250 to 300. It's definitely understandable that people are engaging with other things in their lives besides the Python community. And our workspace, we have lots of different channels for more focused conversations. Some of my favorites include things like book club. We have one for Advent of Code and Pets of Chippy. That's always a lot of fun. People just share pictures of their pets. I also wanted to give a shout out to our PyCon channel. We were fortunate to have a pretty sizable contingent of Chicago folks at PyCon US's over the past few years. And we use this channel as a way to coordinate activities at the conference. But this year with PyCon US becoming a virtual conference, we've been using this room as a way to share talks that have been posted over the past few, I think they posted them over like 5 or 6 waves. And so we've been able to showcase what's going on, and we've been able to spotlight some folks in our community that had a chance to speak at PyCon. And so Slack, it's fantastic. There's a huge ecosystem of plugins in their application directory. We do use a lot of these plugins extensively, but as organizers of a tech-focused community, we have a different set of problems that we're trying to solve. We're trying to build a community. We're trying to foster conversations around Python. We want to keep people informed what's happening in our local community, as well as the wider Python ecosystem. We want to provide folks value so people keep coming back and engaging and participating on this platform. Nothing out there really fit our specific use case, so we needed to design a custom solution. We put together a team and we let them loose on this problem. And after a lot of hard work and just a little bit of design, the end result is Busy Beaver. And this is a Slack bot that was built specifically for the Chicago Python workspace. And this bot's mission statement is to increase engagement within our Chicago Python community. But that's a pretty broad scope. What does this really mean? So let's talk about some of the ways that we're increasing community engagement. In order to make it easier for folks to find out when our upcoming events are happening, we've integrated Chippy's event calendar into our bot. So users can use the /busybeaver_next command to find out when our next event's happening. And there's also a /busybeaver_events command that shows a list of our upcoming events. We've also set up a cron job to have Busy Beaver post this list to our announcements channel at 9 a.m. every Monday morning. And our Slack workspace, it's been set to add new users to this announcements channel. So we really automated a lot of our work that goes into event marketing. Busy Beaver currently integrates with the Meetup API. Every night we have a cron job that runs that syncs our bot's local calendar with the calendar on Meetup. And Chippy uses Meetup to advertise all of our events. So this is currently the only platform we're supporting, but the way Busy Beaver has been designed, we can easily integrate another platform like Eventbrite. Another way that Busy Beaver engages our community is through our retweeter feature. The Chicago Python Twitter account shares a lot of content related to what's happening in both our local community as well as the larger Python ecosystem. We're going to share things like calls for proposals, upcoming conferences and virtual events, releases of Python or of major packages like PyTest or Pandas. But not everybody on our Slack follows us on Twitter. So the Busy Beaver team went out and implemented a feature that's going to share tweets made by the @ChicagoPython Twitter account in a designated channel. And we just call that channel @ChicagoPython. And we also just set this channel to be one of the auto ad channels for new users. And it's really helped to increase the reach of our social media platform. I think we have 500 of our 2,000 folks in this @ChicagoPython channel. And the last Busy Beaver feature I want to highlight is really the original reason we started the bot. GitHub, we all know it. It's a social coding platform. Lots of developers in Chicago and of course around the world use GitHub to store their code and to interact with projects and with other developers. A majority of members in Chicago Python have GitHub accounts, but as a community and as an organization, we really didn't have a lot of insights into projects other people are working on, into the repositories that they're starting, into open source projects that they're contributing to. By providing insight into people's public GitHub activity, we hoped we could increase our user engagement. So users can go out and register with our bot using the /busybeaver connect command, and it's going to send you a private message that's going to ask you to link your Slack account, and you're going to be taken to a GitHub page where you can authorize BusyBeaver to identify you and read your public information. And then every day at 2 p.m. Chicago time, BusyBeaver goes out, it scrapes that GitHub API to find all of the activity for our registered users for that past day, and it compiles a summary and it posts that to the BusyBeaver channel on our Slack. Let's talk about how do we go about making BusyBeaver. This is a picture of myself and Chris Lutke. Chris was my mentee in the Chicago Python mentorship program. And after our formal mentorship was over, we were looking to work on a project together. And one of the ideas we had was to build a Slack bot so we can share activity to see what folks in our community are working on. So we decided to spend the weekend hacking on this project at our local coffee shop. Shout out to Dollop Coffee. Chris was looking into different ways that we can use the GitHub API to compute some useful statistics. He also took ownership of the Slack feature. He wanted to, so his job was to figure out how to send messages, and more importantly, how to send emojis in those messages. I spent a lot of time making BusyBeaver into a proper project. We set up a reproducible development environment. We incorporated SQL Alchemy as our ORM, added migrations. We added tests. We want to make sure that the things that we were doing didn't break existing functionality and that they also worked as intended. And I built out a CI pipeline to ensure that before we merge any code, we have a sense of the quality and if it passes all of our tests. By Sunday night, we had something that resembled like a real Python project. After a little bit of polishing, we were ready to soft launch BusyBeaver to our test users. This gave us a chance to iron out all of our issues before we actually went out and released to our wider public. And doing this, it was a great idea since we learned a few things and we found some issues. One of our test users, he only had a single page of public GitHub activity, and we didn't account for that edge case. And we also had a datetime.now at module level instead of scoped at function level. This meant that we were publishing aggregate statistics versus statistics for the last day. And these are the types of issues we really wanted to figure out. And that's exactly why we had beta users. So after fixing some bugs, we were ready to release BusyBeaver. We announced BusyBeaver at the Chippy main meeting back in, I believe it was January 2019. Yeah, it's been a while. This project, it was received with a lot of great fanfare, but I have a very biased opinion. Folks came up to me and Chris afterwards, and they started talking about different ways that we can make BusyBeaver into more of a community engagement bot. All the pieces were there. We just had to put the work in. So I spent some time developing product management skills as well as project management skills, and we created a product roadmap. So we created a bunch of issues on our GitHub issue tracker, started adding tags for things that we needed help on, things that were good for first-time contributors. On top of Chippy community members making PRs to this bot, I ended up going to a lot of conferences last year, and I found new contributors during open source sprint sessions. And so some conferences, after the talks portions are over, they have open source sprints where project maintainers can find new contributors. And this is a really great way to get involved in open source, since project maintainers are going to be there to help you set up a development environment, as well as to answer any questions that might come up. Sometimes it's not as, I think meeting in person might be a little bit better than meeting online. It adds that extra dimension. And so this is a picture on the left of the BusyBeaver team at PyCon US last year. And on the right, it's my friend Cody and I at PyCascades last year. And one of the contributors of Busy Beaver, is the organizer of Python Belgrade. Shout out to Boyan. He expressed some interest in having this GitHub summary feature in their Slack workspace. Instead of actually taking a step back and doing things properly, we just hacked together a solution to get it in front of more people. And unsurprisingly, this bot did not engage their community the way it did our community. In fact, people thought it was spam. They thought it was like a blockchain enthusiast just annoying everybody. We were so focused on getting into other workspaces that we really forgot to consider rollout and onboarding strategy. I want to talk a little bit more about this in the retrospective, but we did learn an important lesson. Going from 1 user to 2 users, it's not just a technical challenge. We need to ensure that the product we're building is something that our customers actually want. So let's just change some gears and talk about the Busy Beaver tech stack. So first we need to understand what kind of workflows do we have inside this application. Most of our workflows are related to Slack. So the Slack API, it's going to send a request to Busy Beaver. This can be triggered with a slash command or triggered through an event subscription. And depending on what the event is, Busy Beaver is going to have to do some work. It's probably going to have to interact with our database. And it's going to, at the end, it's going to send back a response to Slack. We also have a few workflows, as I mentioned, that are triggered by cron jobs, so just periodic jobs. And so cron's going to kick off a Busy Beaver task. Busy Beaver is going to probably go out to our database, get some information, and then interact with a third-party integration depending on what the task is. And also depending on what the task is, we might post something to Slack. With the context of how this app works at a high level, let's take a look at our backend architecture. Busy Beaver is unsurprisingly a Python web application. We use the Flask framework for this. This currently sits behind our Nginx server or Nginx pod, which acts as our load balancer and a reverse proxy. And our web application is going to get requests from integration callbacks as well as from our front end. And they're just going to be going through Nginx and passed through our Flask application. And our web app, it can also be triggered using management commands from the command line. And for long-running processes and for long-running tasks, we have set up async workers using RQ, and this is going to pick up tasks off of our Redis queue. And our web application, it's going to on-queue tasks on this queue to run either immediately, or we can schedule them to run at a later date. So let's briefly talk about our deployment. Busy Beaver is a cloud-native application that's been developed using the 12-factor application methodology. When we first created this app, the fastest way to get it in front of users was to spin up a couple of Docker containers. So that's exactly what we did. We deployed to prod using Docker Compose. But as the project grew, our hacked together web app and our deployment pipeline, it was starting to become a little bit more unmanageable. I took some time over the past few months to migrate the app to Kubernetes, and it really just gave me the opportunity to learn a new technology that I wanted to play around with. Currently, our deployment is managed, our rollout's been managed by HELM. We've templated out all of our Kubernetes manifests for different environments. And so currently we only have a production environment running, but if we really want to test staging, we could just spin up another Busy Beaver and point to our staging Slack. Our deployments to production are triggered using GitHub Actions. And we used a managed Postgres solution for our relational backend. So backups and recoveries, it's all taken care of. I don't really mind paying some money for somebody else to have to worry about that instead of me. My favorite part of Agile is, I think, the retrospective. I believe in open and honest retros. After pretty much every sprint and every feature release, the only way to get better is to analyze what you did before. So I thought it'd be a useful exercise to conduct a project retrospective with everybody here. So let's start by talking about what went well. Starting this project with a hackathon was a really good idea. We had clearly defined goals on what we wanted to build, and that's exactly what we did. Bringing in beta testers was helpful in finding edge cases, and building out a rudimentary continuous integration, continuous delivery pipeline. It allowed us to iterate quickly. When we found a bug, we can easily fix it and then ship it off into production. And I don't think any talk about DevOps or anything would be a talk without this specific diagram. So I had to include that. And I also like this saying, make it work, make it right, make it fast. This is a quote by Kent Beck. And when we were first building this Slack bot, we built out a proof of concept script. It wasn't even an application. We wanted to get this script in front of people as soon as possible. There's really no point spending time building something people don't want. Next, let's talk about what did not go well. So when we first started building this project, we didn't really have an overarching plan of what we wanted to do. We were trying to solve our specific problem, and that's exactly what we did. And then the bot grew organically from there. The end result, it's a little bit of a mess. And also, I'd say some of this is attributed to me. I didn't really make the best technical decisions when I was first designing the solution. This project originally used the Responder web framework, which is built on top of Startlet. I really had to go out and implement a lot of functionality myself, since I didn't have the tools that the ecosystem of a Flask or a Django would provide. We also used SQLite to get this idea out the door. We eventually did migrate to Flask and to Postgres, but this did take some time, and it took away from some feature work. We didn't know how to use our tools in the most optimal way. This was my first time building a Slack bot. This was Chris's first time building a Slack bot. We really didn't do enough research into how different Slack integrations work, what that user experience is like. This has really been a learning process, and I would say that we're light years ahead of where we are. But of course, we're always still learning and always trying to get better. And at the end of the day, like, we're building a Slack bot. Does this project need Kubernetes? Probably not. I may have spent some time over engineering the solution, but at the same time, like, this is a very valid critique. Like, I would not do this at work, but I did want to have fun with this project, and it gave me a chance to learn a technology I've been wanting to play around with for a few years. So let's talk about things that we can improve going forward as a project. Most of the community-related interactions for Busy Beaver, they've fallen under either Chicago Python or at a conference. So we've had other code of conducts that govern our activity for our sprints and things like that. Fortunately, we've not really had an incident at this moment, but as this project grows in scope and size, we need to start defining what code of conduct means for Busy Beaver. I have an issue currently open on the issue tracker, and I need to do a little bit more research and get more well-versed in what this means. And I hope to have that done in the next few weeks to months. We also definitely need to improve our product management skills. We always have to start taking a step back to make sure that what we're building is actually what users want. This is the very famous product management Venn diagram that you see pretty much everywhere. I modified it a little bit to fit Busy Beaver's mission statement of community. By hacking things together and figuring out how things work, we're able to solve problems in Chicago. But as we learn, going from 1 to 2, it's pretty difficult. And one of the things that we're currently working on is improving our onboarding experience. And this is both onboarding for new users and new workspaces, as well as for new contributors. This is by far our highest priority. Because at the end of the day, we want Busy Beaver to be used by tech-focused communities around the world. We're all solving sort of similar problems. Why spend time reinventing the wheel? So this leads me to our announcement. Over the past few weeks, we've been working on making Busy Beaver from a single tenant to a multi-tenant application so it can be used by other user groups. So if you're interested in installing Busy Beaver, you can go to our GitHub page, hit the Add to Slack button. Once it's installed, workspace admins can go and edit our settings. You can automate engagement specifically for your community. And this could be enabling or disabling certain types of features so you can customize Busy Beaver to work for your community the way you want it to work. For links on how to install Busy Beaver, check out our GitHub page. Give it a star while you're at it. We'd really appreciate it. And before I close out, I sort of just want to talk about the future of Busy Beaver. Currently, not all of our features are multi-tenant. There is still some work to do. It's probably going to take like an afternoon or maybe up to a weekend to get them all there. Currently, as I mentioned, our onboarding workflow, it's not the best. It's a little crude and it lacks polish. This definitely needs to be something that we improve. So I've been starting to document a lot of the tasks that are going to make Busy Beaver into more of a polished product on our issue tracker. If you're interested in contributing, I recommend checking out our README. You give a shout out to Johnny out in Toronto. He wrote up our fantastic contribution docs. I really hope this story of how Chicago Python automated community engagement, it helps other communities out there because we all have similar goals and similar missions. Let's pool our resources and achieve a lot more together. I want to thank all the members of the Busy Beaver team for all their hard work. Thanks everybody out there for your time. I also do want to give a shout out to Chicago Python. I would not be where I am as a developer without that fantastic organization. And I sort of just didn't really talk about how we've been handling COVID. So I just wanted to make a note at the end. With the pandemic, we've not been able to do like in-person events at all. I think that's going to be true pretty much going into next year. But we have been engaging our local community by live streaming events onto our YouTube channel. Since our events are virtual, we've been able to feature speakers from around America. We've had one from Croatia. So yeah, that's been a really great way to connect with the Python community as a whole. If there, I guess there is a silver lining to what's happened. And also, when I just posted a link to these slides, I got this reply. We should be talking about sister cities concepts between communities. And I think that's a fantastic idea. So if anybody would like to chat about that and things like that, please reach out. Again, my name is Sivji, and thanks so much for your time. And I'm happy to take